Did the youth band do a good job? They all are really amazing. We have some kids that weren't able to make it. There's different family stuff going on or different things like that. But, as a whole, they did amazing. My wife kind of put the band together from nothing. And, and then we have our amazing players, singers. Bobby's been awesome with the group. Just kind of the backbone with the drums. And then if the youth step out of line, or Timmy does, he throws a stick at them. And then Timmy and Cody have been awesome, just kind of helping out, transposing. I don't know what that means, but I hear it used a lot. It sounds like a big word. So just a quick thing before I go into the message. The youth group, or a couple of the kids from the youth group, we did a test camp. We were the guinea pigs. We went out to the Warren Willis area, and on the other side, they have a different campsite called the Life Enrichment Center. Huh? And far better, yes. Basically it was camp, but instead it was basically a domestic mission trip. We went off to a community center in a very poor area, and they have kids from like 0 to 18 that come in here, and they help them with different stuff, do classes, do this, that, the other, and we painted that whole place, made it look nice. We went to an area that's a government housing area, and we painted those houses and made them look nice, and it was just really awesome, and the teens did an amazing job. Me and Pam are very, very, very tired, but woo, we made it. And not only that, but apparently there was a prank war that happened while we were there, and if you cannot see, I am still glittering. I would like to say I did not have a budget for my pranks. We did some pranks, and then one of the days there was a pile of glitter cups in front of the doors, and they didn't actually get me with the glitter, so one of our youth kids walked by with a cup full of glitter and said, "Oh," poof, in my face. So that is why I still sparkle. I swear I took a shower. It just won't come out. Huh? Yes. All right. I didn't hear that comment, and I'm going to pretend like I did. All right. If everyone would open their Bibles again to 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. 1 Corinthians 9, chapter 24. Shh. I wasn't looking at you. I'm waiting for everyone to turn in the Bible. All right, 1 Corinthians 9, starting in verse 24. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. So let me start off by saying that I am not an expert at racing, okay? Let's just cover that. I've done one in my life, and it's not the princess. It was the family 5K, okay? Everyone keeps on saying princess. I didn't do the princess run. I did the family 5K, okay? And that's my medal, and I was very happy about the medal until I realized that everyone gets a medal, so, I can do them. I can run it somewhat, but I'm not the expert at running. I'm not the expert at any type of physical exercise whatsoever, if you cannot tell. But I did the Disney race several months ago, and I had to train myself. So, first thing I did is I downloaded this little app called, like Couch to 5K, because that was me. It was a 5K, and those that are runners out here are already laughing because, 5K is nothing. But I did the Couch to 5K, and I realized that when you train, it is really hard. The race is completely different than the training, because with the training, you are running around the same block or the same pond or lake, or you are not really competing against anything. You are just pushing yourself. And then when you get to the race, I got to the race, and of course, I was accused of leaving Christine and Rachel. Rachel had an asthma attack or a heart attack or whatever. I came to run. I did not come to be a nurse. I am not a nurse. So I let the Disney specialist do what the Disney specialists do, and I ran. I ran the race, and it was completely different because the entire time you're competing against people. You are running this race. Everyone is going to the same goal. And then especially at the very end, when you see that finish line up ahead of you, and you start booking with everything you have. At that point, the cramps didn't matter. I sweat profusely. That didn't matter. It was just, I want to get to that finish line. And granted, in my head, it was, Chariots of Fire music playing. I was running in slow motion. It's a good thing no one videotaped it, because if you ever see the pictures, I don't think I actually had good form or anything. Like, anytime they saw the pictures, I was like, but I kind of hobbled to the finish line, but I did it. Woo! That was a weak clap. It was special for me. No, just kidding. Now I feel better. Okay, but here's the thing. In the Bible, Paul talks about races a lot. Paul talks about his strive and determination and the idea of completing a race. Christianity is a race. We are daily in this race. And the question is, do we know it? A couple weeks ago, I talked about the impacts that we leave. How there are good impacts that we leave and bad impacts that we leave. And part of the problem with leaving a bad impact is this. A lot of people do it because they forget that they are daily in a race. This race is a race that will not stop until we are on the other side. And sadly, Christianity as a race is a race that a lot of people drop out of. They give up and they stop running. So this is a really big thing, because I'm not a 3-point message kind of person, but I actually have 3 points. Yes, I know. You guys are witnessing history here. So the question is, how do we run this race? And the first point is, Paul talks about it, you train. How many of you guys have ever heard of echinacea? Yeah, it's like that weird vitamin thingy. Echinacea, it's like a vitamin you take. It's supposed to make you healthy. And so my parents, when I was younger, my parents went through this whole want to be healthy kick or whatever. I'm a consistency person. I need, like, if you have pudding should be smooth. If it has lumps in it, I'm going to get sick. Is anyone else that way? Like, if you eat something that's supposed to be hard and it's soft, I don't. And so my parents, they made this thing, and it was like a green powder, and then you mix it, and you drink it. First off, no drink should be green. Yes, no, disgusting. And then my parents are like, well, you have to drink it. Every day I had to drink this thing. And so being the bright person that I am, I'm like, okay, I'll just chug it. And it was like, you ever have hair that gets caught in a drain? It was like, as I'm like swallowing it, it's like clumping up in my throat, and I'm like, and then my parents, being the great parents that they were, I do love them to death, but they were like, you realize if you throw that up, we're going to smack you, and then we're going to make you drink more. So you're like, completely disgusting. I am a consistency type person. We went to this camp thing this week, and I was very excited because we went for breakfast, and I like grits. Over time, I've developed a taste for grits. And so they had the grits there, and I was all happy, and I pour some cheese in it and some butter in it, mix it all up, and I'm about to take a bite, and that's when Pamela explains to me that it's not grits, it's oatmeal. I hate oatmeal. Oatmeal is disgusting. It is consistency. When you decide that you want to race, you don't just like, hey, I think I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. Let's do it right now. You don't just leave a building and decide, hey, I'm going to run this marathon. It takes training. You need to train and discipline your body to run the race. You need to start eating healthier. You need to eat certain gross foods. In the same way, as Christians, you can't just be like, hey, I'm a Christian and I'm just going to go do this. We forget the whole fact that there is training that goes into it. And that happens with the manual that God gave us, the Bible. Oftentimes, we let that thing sit on the shelf for so long. My grandmother, she had one Bible in her house, and it was that really, anyone see that? The ultra thick, like, family Bible that just collects dust. And yes, and it was really, really, really scary. I don't know why they made them that big. I think it was weapons. But they made the really big Bible. That is what we see sometimes. We just have the Bible, and it just sits on the shelf. Prayer actually talking to God, we completely push that out of the window. We can't expect to grow in our walk if we never actually read the Bible, if we never actually pray, because it's all about a relationship. And you can't expect to walk the Christian walk, just like you can't expect to do a marathon if you never actually train yourself. And it's all about disciplining yourself. Who here has ever picked up a Bible, let's be honest, and read it and you zone out? Okay? Yeah, sometimes it's really, really hard to understand. Yes. Translations, hey, read whatever works. But then there's the other time that, how many of us have ever actually read the Bible and we read something that was hard to read? And I don't mean a big word. I mean something that was like, oh, I don't like that. See, that's part of training and disciplining is this. The Bible is supposed to confront us with who we are and what we need to change in order to be a better person. In Hebrews 12, Paul talks, or the writer of Hebrews says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. See, here's the thing. It's Florida. It's hot. I don't know if you guys realize that, but this is a very hot area, okay? Yes, I know. You do not go out to run a race with a snow jacket and snow pants. It's stupidity. Although the kids are going to have me do the 10K next year, and I'm dressing up as a Disney character, apparently. Woo! You don't run a race with tons and tons of clothing on. You run a race with what is comfortable to run in. And Paul says when it comes to this race, you got to take off all these things that are going to hold you back. And part of it, and the reason why we read the Bible is this. We are confronted with the things that we need to take off of ourselves. See, everyone holds on to certain sins. And sometimes we make the mistake of trying to be okay with it. God's fine if I do this. But when you start reading the Bible and you realize that there's a loving, caring God and there are certain things that he said is sin, that's when you're confronted with, I need to take these things off if I'm going to run this race better. It's all about training. The second one, setting the goal. Continuing on in Hebrews 12, it says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. See, here's what happens, is that after a while with running, you got to keep your eyes on the goal. If you keep on running, like that was the hardest thing with training. There was no goal. And when you're in the race, you constantly set. And when you see that finish line, you book as hard as you can. And a lot of times in Christianity, the problem that we run into is this. God, Jesus, the one that we look to, becomes less important. And we start putting other things in that place. Other things as focus. Some of these things are fine in their own context, but, money becomes more important than God. Friends, family, if you're dating someone, relationships, all these things start taking the place of God, and you lose your focus. And as Christians, we begin to slow down in our walk. We begin to lose our focus and lose our desire for God. We forget about his love or his sacrifice, and instead it's, well, this is what I want to do. And we slow down. And then the last thing is, so you got to train, you got to set the goal, and the last thing is no regrets. 2 Timothy 4. See, here's the thing. Sometimes when we read the Bible, we read it and we don't understand a lot of what's going on, and it's because we don't completely know the story. And this is actually one of my favorite portions of Scripture when you actually understand what's going on. See, Paul wrote like half of the New Testament. Really cool guy, really great story. And when it comes to the book of 2 Timothy, he's writing this to a guy named Timothy. Timothy's a young guy, basically raised him in the faith, and he's now a pastor of a church. But as Paul is writing this, he knows that basically his life is over. He's come to the end of his life, and he knows that he doesn't have much longer to live. And so as he writes this entire book, it's like a last will and testament. And so he says, for I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award for me on that day. And not only me, but also for those who have longed for his appearing. One of my big passions is missions. I love doing missions trips. Here, domestically, and abroad. Love it. It is a passion of mine. My first trip, I made the big mistake. I was like 15 years old, and I went overseas, and I went overseas for all the wrong reasons. How many of you guys have ever done something stupid for a pretty girl? Yeah, there should be more hands up. Pretty girl was going on the trip, and I'm like, sweet, yes, okay, I'll go overseas. And I went for all the wrong reasons, and it became evident when I was overseas, and I was like hit with everything that I had to do, and all the heat, and all the construction, and I was grumpy, I was mean, I was like depressed, because I went for all the wrong reasons. And over time, I went on more trips, went for the right reasons, and then eventually when that became one of my minors in college, I started actually planning out the trips and leading the trips. And we would do training. We would do really intense training. If you ever do a missions trip with me, I am intense when it comes to our training to prepare you for as much as we can. And one of the things that I would always tell them is when you do the trip, do it without regrets. While you're there, don't have any regrets. And what I mean by that is not like, hey, I'm going to jump out in front of El Salvadorian traffic. That is not a regret I'm talking about. If you've ever been to El Salvador, their traffic is really crazy. Red lights are suggestions. In fact, our bus driver had a license, and it had slices in it. And we were like, oh, what's that? And he explained to us that when you are in that country, if you have a car accident, especially with a pedestrian, and you kill said pedestrian, you go home, you call up your lawyer, and you work out a cash payment to the family. So, yeah, it's my brother. I don't really care. $5,000, yeah, sure. And then you get a slice in your license. You're allowed 3 of them before you're arrested or have your license taken away. And so we were like, no, you're kidding, right? And we talked to the people, and no, they weren't kidding. And we were like, oh, so our bus drivers killed someone. That is creepy. Okay, so you don't want to run out in front of El Salvadorian traffic, okay? It's a bit crazy. But what I mean by no regrets is this. We would tell them, if you are sitting there and you're doing a craft with some kids, and you see a kid off by themselves, don't just say, wow, it'd be great if maybe later I talk to this kid. Call the kid over. If you see someone and you just feel like you should talk or pray to them, it's really creepy to lay hands on people and pray for them in the middle of public. But guess what? If that's what God's calling you to do, don't wish later on that you had done that. And we were on one of the trips, and we had, and this, I'm a leader, I'm, helping run the trip, and they divided our group. We were in Dominican Republic, and they had me take a group to a hospital. And it was, no one really wanted to go to the hospital because it just wasn't as, sparkly and nice as doing the other ministry stuff. And so most of the people that had to go were like, oh, we got to go to the hospital. And so we went to the hospital, and you could just tell that we really didn't want to be there. And we went, I had balloon animals, and so I was making balloon animals, like, hey, it's an earthworm. Hey, it's a snake. Hey, it's a staff. That was, I'm not bad at them, but yeah, so we made balloon animals, and we were going room to room. And I'm not going to get all crazy here, but, if you can never complain about your country's hospital system until you go to a third world country and you realize that the IVs that they put into people are upside down 2-liter bottles of soda. Their rooms, they would have 2, 3, sometimes 4 people in a room half the size of the youth room. The beds were the little camp beds, if they had a mattress. And that was the extent of what they could really do for them. And it's really, really sad. And so we were in there working with the kids, and I went into a room, and I made a couple of people in the room different balloon animals, and there was this 2-year-old little boy, and I made him a balloon animal, and he loved it, and I went into the next room, and then the mom came back, and she's like, his balloon popped. Can you make him another? And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm out of balloon animals. I'll bring it back tomorrow. And then I made the mistake of avoiding that room because I felt embarrassed that I didn't have enough balloon animals. Never went in and talked to the mom that much. Never went in and prayed for the boy and said, I'll do it tomorrow. That night, God really convicted me about the opportunity that I might have missed. And so I was like, you know what? Live no regrets. Yes. And so I went the next morning, made this really elegant balloon dog, went into the room, and the bed was cleaned. And talked to, I don't know Spanish at all, so I talked to, through the translator, they told me that the little boy had pneumonia. Very, very simple case. But it's not America. And the little boy died overnight. Not that my prayers could have healed the boy or anything like that, but even as a leader, I left with the regret of I avoided that room because of something silly. And I wasn't there to be able to witness to her or talk to her. And even as a leader, we leave sometimes with regrets of things that we could have done better. Paul is running this race, and he basically says, I have run this race as best that I can, and I am leaving without any regrets. What about us? When it comes to running this race, are we going to leave it with regrets? Things that we wish we had done better? Maybe if I was nicer to that person, I don't know their name or anything like that, but maybe I would have had an opportunity to witness to them. Maybe I would have had an opportunity if I just prayed for them. You got to run the race and train for it. You got to run the race and set the goal. And as the team comes up. And lastly, you got to run the race and run it without any regrets. Because Christianity is a race. And the biggest thing that we can run into is when we run into the idea that it's not a race. And we forget that there are people that we are surrounded by in our life, its very self. That everything that we do is a witness. That everything we say is a witness. And our very lives are living that life that a Christian should. Too many times we go around with the label of a Christian and we forget the whole fact that it's about Christ. We are running this race together. The question is, are we really running it? During this time, I just want you guys to reflect. Close your eyes and just reflect on your life and what kind of race you have been running. Have you been training as well as you should be? When was the last time you picked up your Bible or prayed? Is your focus off? Is Jesus still the focus of everything that you do? And last but not least, have you gone by with regrets? Because it's never too late to make that promise. I'm going to do the best I can with every moment that I have.